What would have happened if the gang took Agent Milton's deal? Now, as we know in Chapter 2, Agent Milton ends up finding the gang, and he says he makes them a deal where if they give him to Dutch, if they, give Dutch, into, the law, they'll make all of them free and let them have a fresh start. However, at this point, they don't know, what's gonna happen, obviously. They don't know, how Dutch and Micah are gonna, basically ruin the gang. So they end up not taking this deal, which was valid at the time. However, later in Chapter 6, most of the gang comes to regret this. So today, I'm going to be going over what I think would have happened if they would have taken this deal. Starting off, I think a decent amount of the gang would not have died. I'm not going to list them all because a lot of them do die throughout the story. I'm just going to list a couple that I think wouldn't have died. Sean, obviously, Lenny, Hosea, and Molly. I think those gang members wouldn't have died, and I think some deaths like that, some people think could be avoided, still might have happened. However, those are not all the ones I think wouldn't have happened. It's just I don't want to list them all out. For thing 2, I think Red Dead Redemption 1 would be way different. To start, I still think, despite John not having Chapter 4 to end up bonding with his family to end up loving them, I still think John eventually would have come to terms that he has to take care of his family, and still eventually got in the ranch and got out of the crime life. I think it would definitely be very different. However, I do think it still would have happened, because John was still an alright dad and husband in Chapter 2. I think he definitely, for sure, would have ended up having a ranch, so that means the government and Red Dead 1 still happens. And you may be thinking, well, doesn't Edgar Ross and Agent Fordham find John cause Micah dies, which probably wouldn't have happened in this timeline? Well, yeah, you're probably right. However, I think that they would still found him, because with the gang, still being a lot of them, and with the government literally telling them they can live their lives, I'm pretty sure they'd keep, close ties on them, and I'm pretty sure eventually they'd still turn on the gang, as we see, them doing Red Dead 1 still. And I feel like since John was the most, settled down and easy to find because he really wasn't trying to hide, I think a lot of them would have tried to, hide for the rest of their lives so they wouldn't get caught again. However, John would have still probably settled down. So I think John would be responsible to kill most of the gang. However, I do think he would spare a couple gang members because they've helped him. Like Charles and Sadie, of course. So I do think he does have a soft spot for some gang members. However, I think Red Dead 1 would be completely different with even more details than what I just said. Number 3, I think that Micah and Dutch would not have become buddy-buddy, meaning Micah would have controlled the gang. Obviously, if Dutch is dead and or in prison, most likely hanged, Micah would basically just be screwed, because without him having a buddy-buddy to basically just make him the top, the gang would probably retaliate against him. And instead of just, tolerating him because Dutch wants them to, he'd probably get killed. Or he just would have had a bad rest of his life, because the reason why he joined the gang was to possibly profit off of Dutch. Number 4, Arthur still gets tuberculosis. However, I think 2 things change. 1, I think Arthur lives longer, because obviously if he got out of the outlaw life right after contracting, he definitely would not have died as quick if he stopped the outlaw life. And also going to Gorma really increased his TB symptoms. And with that not happening, because chapter 2 is just the end, it would make it where Arthur would live a lot longer. So I don't know why I said Dutch, I'm sorry. And the second thing, I think Mary and Arthur could have gotten married and had kids for a while, for at least a couple years. However, I do think Mary would eventually be single again, because Arthur's eventual death. Now we get on to number 5. Now, this one's not really related to the Vanderlins. This one's actually about the O'Driscolls. I actually think Colm O'Driscoll and his gang might have actually stopped, because one of their main reasons, to be a gang, was to go after the Vanderlins. As we see in, the first 3 chapters, Dutch, like the Vanderlands and the O'Driscolls, go out of their way to go after each other. So it gives the O'Driscolls less of a point of existing without their competing gang. And with the West ending, I think they would have just ended the gang like right after the Vanderlands. Anyway, I think that's gonna be about it for today's video. Let me know if you enjoyed my theory. Let me know if you thought there was anything I missed, or let me know if there's anything that I got wrong. I love to hear it. Anyway, this is about it for today's video. Also, if you have any theories you want me to do, or any gameplay videos you want me to do, or any games you want me to cover in general, I'm open for it. Please subscribe if you want more videos like this. I want to hit 250 by the end of the year. Anyway, have an amazing day, and please subscribe again. Goodbye.